It all started with an envelope. Not a subpoena, not a jury summons, not even one of those wedding invites with a dress code that's more of a threat than a suggestion. No, this was a notice from the Maple Creek Estates Homeowners Association, and if you've never gotten one of those, well, buckle up. Let me back up a sec. My name's Leo, and about 6 months ago, I did the impossible for any millennial. I bought a house. Not a condo, not a timeshare, a real house, complete with a mortgage that could choke a horse and a lawn I was now legally responsible for. After years of apartment living, where the neighbor below could hear me sneeze, finally having my own patch of grass felt like a straight-up miracle. Maple Creek Estates seemed perfect. The lawns looked like green felt. Mailboxes lined up with military precision, and every Tuesday at 7 a.m. sharp, a fleet of identical garbage trucks glided down the street like clockwork. I mean, it was less a neighborhood and more of a suburban science experiment, serenity enforced by decree. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, which means I get a front row seat to the Maple Creek show. And let me tell you, the star of that show is Carol. Carol's in her late 50s, drives a golf cart she calls the Justice Mobile, and carries a clipboard like it's a badge. She's got the sharpest eyes on the block. And you could tell she took a little too much pleasure in catching folks with, I don't know, a festive wreath a day past Christmas, or, God forbid, a sunflower that dared to grow half an inch too tall. Now, my own little slice of paradise was the porch, where I'd arranged 20 or so stylish terracotta pots, empty as my promises to start jogging. They looked kind of artistic if you squinted. A little rustic, maybe even sculptural. That was the plan anyway. Fill them with basil, maybe some lavender, a few wildflowers. But you know how life goes. A big project lands, or there's a new season of Space Vikings, and suddenly those pots are a monument to good intentions. Carol, however, did not share my vision. One morning, I'm on the porch, second coffee in hand, watching a squirrel try to outsmart my bird feeder, when I see the Justice Mobile roll up and stop dead in front of my house. Carol just sits there, visor down, giving my empty pots the stare down of the century. She makes a check, the Maple Creek logo glinting in the sun. Inside, on paper thick enough to double as body armor, was my first violation, apparently, as per Bylaw 7, Section 4, Paragraph B, all decorative. Containers must be actively cultivated with living botanical matter. Otherwise, they need to be out of sight. The letter went on. My pots, all 20, had been spotted, and if I didn't rectify this violation, within 14 days, I'd be fined $2,500 a day. It was signed with the kind of aggressive penmanship that makes you want to check your own posture. Carol Jenkins, President. It was so over the top, I actually read it aloud to my cat. My first instinct was just to give up, haul the pots inside, and be done with it. But then I happened to catch Carol drive by again. Slow down, and give me the tiniest little smirk and wave. That was the moment it turned from silly to war. She wanted actively cultivated? Oh, I'd give her the most actively cultivated pots she'd ever seen. The next day, I skipped the Home Depot trip and headed to this wild nursery on the edge of town, the Prickly Pear. The place looked like a greenhouse run by mad scientists. But that's what I needed. The owner, Silas, looked like he'd sprouted from the earth itself. I told him my situation. HOA, empty pots, need something with attitude. He just grinned. HOA trouble. He said, you don't want plants, you want a statement. He led me to the carnivorous section. That's where I met the Venus flytrap, nature's little monster, the ultimate middle finger to suburban tyranny. I left with 20 of them, plus a crash course in how to keep them alive. Distilled water only, peat and sand, no tap water, no fertilizer. Saturday, I set up my pots like a little army, planted the flytraps, and whispered words of encouragement. Even named the biggest one Carol Jr. Just as I finished, my neighbor Hank wandered over. Hank's retired, built like a linebacker, and about as chill as they come. He took one look at my setup, heard the story, and just about doubled over laughing. You're gonna give Carol a stroke with those things. That was the boost I needed. The revolution had its first ally. Tuesday comes, and I'm ready. I'm on the porch with my iced tea when Carol glides up in the Justice Mobile, ready to gloat. She steps out, sees the flytraps, and just stops. Stares. The smugness drains from her face. What are those? She sputters. Just some plants, Carol. Like the letter said. Actively cultivated. I introduced her to Carol Jr. and watched as she scrambled through her bylaws, desperate for a loophole. Nothing. No rules against carnivorous plants. She glared, promised payback with her eyes, and sped off. The Venus flytraps turned into neighborhood celebrities. Kids started leaving bugs on my porch, daring each other to get closer. Hank would swing by with a beer, and we'd watch flies meet there. Doom, laughing like idiots. But not everyone was happy. The Carol loyalists started muttering, walking their dogs on the other side of the street, scowling as if my plants were personally offending them. I leaned in, put up a sign, "Please don't feed the plants. They can hunt for themselves." Made Carol Jr. an Instagram, too. Carnivore activist, disrupting aesthetic harmony. Got a few dozen followers, mostly the younger crowd. Carol was livid, but she couldn't do a thing. So she started finding new reasons to harass me. Garbage cans left out for 15 minutes too long. A blade of grass that grew past 4 inches, the shape of my garden hose. Apparently, it was more elliptical than circular. You can't make this stuff up. I fought back by learning the bylaws better than she did, picking out loopholes, and even catching Carol breaking some rules herself. My favorite was when she wrote me up for leaving up holiday lights past January 1st, but the bylaw only covered illuminated displays. Mine were unplugged. I pointed that out. And, by the way, her golf cart parked on the street technically wasn't a standard vehicle. The fine stopped. But now Carol was spreading rumors, said my plants were dangerous, attracting bugs, maybe even poisonous. One day, Brenda from down the street pulled her kid away from my porch, worried the flytraps would bite him. I assured her, deadpan, that unless her son was the size of a horsefly, he was safe. Brenda cracked up. That broke the spell. People stopped buying Carol's nonsense. I realized if I wanted peace, I couldn't just play defense. So I decided to build a pergola, a nice cedar one, perfect for my barren backyard. Of course, I needed HOA approval, and Carol chaired the review committee. I hired Dave, a contractor with a black belt in HOA nonsense. He'd dealt with Carol before and relished the challenge. We made the plans bulletproof, every measurement exact, the right stain, the perfect setback. Still, Carol rejected the plan over the color, too close to Sierra redwood. Then the screws needed metal specs. Then because the shadow might, at 3:45 p.m. on a September Tuesday, encroach on Mrs. Gable's sunflowers. I was ready to lose my mind, but Dave made me read the bylaws. Section G said if the committee doesn't give a definitive and final answer in 45 days, the project is automatically approved. We were at day 46. So I sent Carol and the board a polite letter, with receipts, letting them know construction would start Monday. When the lumber arrived, Carol stormed into my yard, screaming about unapproved construction and calling the police. The officers took one look at my paperwork, bylaws, mail receipts, everything, told Carol it was a civil matter, and left. Dave cranked up his saw. Hank led the neighbors in slow clapping from across the street. And for once, Carol was powerless. The public humiliation did what years of grumbling never could. The next day, Hank called. "You've woken the sleeping giant," he said. Folks were calling for an emergency HOA meeting. The place was packed, Carol's loyalists on one side, everyone else on the other. One by one, people stood up to share their horror stories. Chalk drawings called graffiti, a 3-month battle to approve a screen door. Even Brenda spoke about the dangerous plants. Then Hank called on me to speak. I didn't plan to, but I just told my story. Empty pots, endless violations, police in my yard. Folks laughed, then got serious. A neighborhood should be about community, not control, I said. These bylaws were meant to protect us, not weaponize one person's pettiness. The room erupted in applause. Hank made a motion to vote Carol out. 54 out of 60 did. Hank took over as interim president, promising to cut 200 pages of nonsense from the rulebook. The room roared. A month later, Maple Creek feels alive again. The sidewalks are full of kids' drawings, folks chat in their driveways, and the air's lighter, like everyone's finally exhaled. My cedar pergola is finished, strung with warm lights, and sometimes, after Hank heads home, I stand on my porch, watching my Venus flytraps thrive. They're not defiant anymore. They're just part of the neighborhood. Carol keeps to herself now, her Justice Mobile. gathering dust. I don't feel smug when I see her, just a little sad. She built her life on control, and when that's gone, what's left? I guess that's the real lesson. Sometimes, the biggest victory isn't beating the bully, but helping everyone else remember they don't have to take it. And as I watch a fat blue bottlefly buzzing near my head, I catch it, walk over to Carol Jr., and drop it into the open trap. Thip. The pot's not empty anymore. It's full of victory, community, and a kind of peace you only get by fighting for it. So what do you think? Was I right to fight? Fire with fire? Or did I just add fuel to the flames? Drop your own HOA horror stories down below. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever out-pettied a petty tyrant, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for the next chapter. You know what I mean?